You know, our bodies are producing this constant stream of data every single second. But have you ever stopped to think about the most overlooked one? It's not your heart rate, it's not how many steps you take, it's your breath. So, what if that simple, totally unconscious act could unlock some of the biggest secrets about your health? What if it could predict an illness weeks before you even feel sick?
Yeah, I know. It sounds a little bit like science fiction, right? But this is where we are now. We're moving way beyond smartwatches and fitness trackers you have to remember to charge. We're talking about tech that's so seamless, so integrated into your home, that it can monitor your vitals without ever touching you. The future of health monitoring isn't something you wear, it's the very space you live in.
So how in the world does this actually work? Well, forget about strapping on a chest monitor or wearing a special ring to bed. The really big innovations happening right now are completely contactless. They're turning everyday objects into these incredibly sophisticated health guardians. And it really all boils down to two main ways of doing it.
Okay, so on one hand, you've got radar. Think of a small device, maybe on your nightstand. It sends out these tiny signals that can measure the subtle rise and fall of your chest while you sleep. And the amazing part, it works right through your pajamas, through your blankets, no problem. Then, on the other hand, you have fiber optics. These can be woven into a mat under your mattress, and they are so unbelievably sensitive, they don't just pick up your breathing, they can feel the tiny vibrations from your actual heartbeat. So two very different methods, but they're both chasing the same vital data stream.
Now, what's one of the first huge problems we can solve with this kind of tech? Let's talk about sleep. More specifically, let's talk about a really common and pretty dangerous disorder that affects millions of people, sleep apnea. Getting diagnosed is usually a whole big process, but these new tools are completely changing the game because they're looking for a signal that pretty much everyone else is missing.
You know, we tend to think of sleep apnea as that moment when a person just stops breathing. And yeah, that's true. But from a tech standpoint, trying to detect a lack of a signal, just silence, is actually really tricky. Did the person stop breathing, or did they just roll over? Did the sensor lose contact for a second? It turns out there's a much clearer, much louder event to look for. See, the technology isn't trained to find the silence. It's trained to find the body's desperate recovery. After that pause in breathing, the brain panics and triggers this powerful, sudden gasp for air. And that forceful breath, it creates this huge, absolutely unmistakable spike in the data that an AI can spot from a mile away. So it's not the stop that tells the story, it's the violent restart.
So you might be wondering, how well does this actually work? Well, studies that compared this radar method to the gold standard, the in-hospital sleep studies with all the wires, found it can identify severe sleep apnea with up to 92% accuracy. That is just incredible for a device that never even lays a finger on the patient.
Okay, so it can spot sleep apnea. That's already a huge deal. But this data gets even more profound. By analyzing not just a single breath, but the entire pattern of breathing over a whole night, this tech can give us an early warning for one of the most serious chronic conditions out there, heart failure. The specific pattern has a name. It's called periodic breathing. And it's this really dangerous sounding cycle. A person's breathing gets faster and faster, then it gets shallower and shallower until it stops completely for a bit. And then the whole cycle just starts over again. For a heart that's already struggling, this pattern is a major red flag that things are unstable. But here's the really brilliant part. Researchers figured out that the key isn't just if this pattern is happening. The crucial metric is its cycle length. That's the total time it takes to go from the peak of one breathing burst, through that scary pause, all the way to the peak of the next burst. That specific number, that duration, turns out to be an incredibly powerful new vital sign. So here's how it acts as an early warning system. First, the sensor just quietly detects that this periodic breathing is happening night after night. Second, the AI measures that cycle length, tracking it over time. And third, and this is the real breakthrough, research has shown that as a patient's heart failure gets worse, that cycle length actually gets longer. An increase can predict a trip to the hospital weeks before it happens, giving doctors a critical window to step in and make a change. So this tech can see into our lungs, it can see into our heart, but what about our mind? Well, it turns out our breath is deeply, deeply connected to our nervous system. And because of that, it can give us an objective, measurable signal for our emotional state, especially things like stress and anxiety.
The biological link here is something called respiratory sinus arrhythmia, or RSA. Now, don't let the name scare you off. It's actually a perfectly normal and very healthy thing.
All it means is that there's a natural rhythm between your breathing and your heart. When you inhale, your heart rate naturally goes up just a little bit, and when you exhale, it slows back down. It's your body's systems just working in perfect harmony.
So here's how that becomes an emotional thermometer. When you're calm and relaxed, that connection, that coupling, is really strong. Your breath and your heart are in this beautiful, predictable dance. But when you get stressed, your nervous system gets flooded with other signals, and that dance completely breaks apart. The two rhythms become chaotic, they become decoupled. And by measuring how strong that connection is, these sensors can get a truly objective read on your stress levels.
So when you start to put all these pieces together, the sleep monitoring, the heart failure prediction, the emotional state analysis, what do you get? Well, you get a genuine revolution in how we manage chronic disease. Suddenly, healthcare isn't just something that happens at the doctor's office. It's happening quietly, continuously, right in our own homes.
I mean, just imagine a patient with COPD. A smart cushion that they use in their favorite chair can track everything from their breathing strain while they eat a meal to the actual power and speed they generate when they stand up. That data on leg strength, which is a huge predictor of outcomes for them, can then feed directly into a personalized, AI-guided rehab app. It creates this complete circle of care, all happening right in their living room. In the end, it really all comes back to this one simple idea. For years, we've been looking for these complex biomarkers and invasive tests to understand our health. And all along, one of the most powerful diagnostic tools we have has been hiding in plain sight, in the simple, rhythmic signal of our own breath.
This kind of invisible technology isn't some far-off dream. It's already here, turning our beds and our chairs into clinics. It promises this future of proactive, truly personalized healthcare. The only question left is, as our homes start to whisper these secrets about our health, are we ready to start listening?